Now we move on to what could be one of the biggest scandals in South Africa's religious history. The Kwasizabantu Mission has been embroiled in allegations of sexual abuse, money laundering, fraud, as well as cultism. These claims surfaced after a 7-month investigation by News 24. Since the story broke, more witnesses have come forward with chilling recollections of abuse and corruption at that mission, which is based in Kranskop, that's in KwaZulu-Natal. This prompted public hearings by religious and cultural watchdog, the CRL Commission. After initially refusing to recognize the legitimacy of these hearings, yesterday the mission allowed itself to be scrutinized by members of the media when it opened its doors for a tour for the first time. Let's take a listen.
Something happened. Now you need to understand, we were sent by our mission to investigate. That was our task. But as Erlustegen was threatening us in such a way, something strange happened to us. I can't say it in any other term. We said, what should we do? He said, well, you write a new statement. And then he fetched a typewriter and he was dictating us a report which we were supposed to send overseas.
They just take the drug addicts and they give them uniform to be a security of the event. So when children come, they thought these boys are from the mission, think and everything, because now they have the authority of guiding them everywhere where they go. So those boys, every time they have to be chased out because they stay with these children.
All right, so those were just two witnesses who spoke for a marathon run, really, of the hearings by the CRL Commission. As we stand, it still remains to be seen whether the establishment will survive the scandal, as some of these complaints date as far back as 1978. To speak to us for the first time exclusively on the allegations on television, let's bring in the spokesperson for the Kwasizabantu Mission, that's Ruth Combrink. Ruth, thanks very much for joining us on the AM report. Certainly appreciate your time. Perhaps let's go straight for the jugular. Can you categorically say that there's been no abuse experienced on the premise of Kwasizabantu, especially given what we now know might have happened?
Yes, Kwasizabantu Mission is a microcosm of society. Wherever you go in the world, there is evil. But for us, the most important thing is, what do you do about these evils? We have many people coming from many walks of life. But the mission wants to always bring healing for whoever comes, whether it's the perpetrator, whether it's the victim, whoever it is, we want to be there to help those people to find a new lease on life, and that is only possible through the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay, I've noted how you actually haven't answered my question, but let me ask you this then. Were you surprised by some of the claims that were brought forward over the past few days?
Most definitely. We were very shocked to hear all these allegations. And that's why it was important for us to get the truth. And we appointed an independent panel, which we said, please get down to the bottom of the truths, because what we are clear on is that the mission was never complicit. It never condoned evils. And it is for us very important to get to the bottom of it, and that whoever is the perpetrator must be brought to book. The CRL has also subsequently done its investigation, which we welcome that, because we want the truth to come out as well there. And the Premier of KZN, like you mentioned previously, has also sent its delegation. And we say whatever investigation there is, we open our arms to that. We want the truth to be told, so that it can all be addressed, and whoever the perpetrator is, we will assist in that person being brought to book.
Some people listening now might say you're striking a very different tone to the statements we received at the onset of this matter. But you also mentioned that you're surprised by these allegations, even though we've been told some of them date as far back as 1978. In fact, the brother of the founder of the mission, that's Erlustegen, that's the founder's name, Manfred, who's the brother, said some of the women who had actually come forward with allegations of rape were being blamed for the abuse themselves. So are you able to categorically say that this is the first time you're hearing of alleged abuses at Kwasizabantu?
Well, obviously the abuses that we heard about, we saw for the first time in the newspapers. And we said, look, we weren't there however many years ago, so we want to go into every single one. We did our own internal investigation. We pulled people that were involved, names that were mentioned, and we said, please come forward. Let us go through everything that I've mentioned, especially on that Exodus video, and let's get to the bottom of the truth.
Okay.
We ultimately...
Go ahead.
Sorry. So we ultimately do not condone any one of those wrongs. We do not condone abuse. We will never condone abuse. And that's why we say, come forward, let us sort it out. We cannot sit, we cannot be a place where we want to spread the gospel, bring healing to people so that they can have a new life if we condone such evils. That would never work, and the whole mission of the mission would never be able to be accomplished if we allowed such things at Kwasizabantu Mission.
Okay. Ruth, I still need clarity on this issue. Was the mission aware of any allegations of abuse at that church before this investigation by News 24 and I guess the attention that it's received? On the one hand, it almost sounds as though you're saying that, yes, we were aware of something that might have happened, but on the other hand, you're surprised by some of these claims. Surely both can't be true at the same time.
I think when we received those allegations, they definitely came as a shock to us. There are definitely truths to some of the allegations, but it's not that we were aware of those, and that's why we've said, let the people come forward, let us discuss it, let us be able to say what we know, what we didn't know. But one thing we are very, very certain about is that whatever happened, we never condoned. The mission could never condone. We obviously, as I said, are a microcosm of society. So if any of those abuses happen, we have a responsibility to react responsibly and to be fair on the victim. We would never want that victim to suffer, and that's why we have to take the appropriate action, and we believe that in anything that happened, we never condoned that action, and the appropriate action was taken at that time to the best of our knowledge. But going forward, we're saying if there's anything that others or evidence that they have, please, they must bring it forward so that it can be treated appropriately and so that the perpetrators can be brought to book and that things can be sorted out, that we can be reconciled.
Yeah, when you say appropriate action was taken at that time, what happened? In what ways did the church actually respond to those claims back then?
Well, I think that is what we are wanting to find out. That's why we are saying, come forward, all you who are victims, let's sort it out. That's why we appointed the independent panel to say, please, you have a look. What was the story? What do they say? Obviously, like you said, it dates far back. So we don't know exactly what happened. All we can do is pull forward the parties that were involved and say, please let it be addressed. Let's sort it out. This mission was founded because we want to spread the gospel. My dad is the founder of the mission. His aim was to bring the gospel to people so that they can meet the Lord and have a new lease on life. Yeah. And that is our vision even till today. He was a selfless person. He lived for others. And we say if we don't have that same heart today, there is no way that we can continue that work if we don't have the same heart.
But Ruth, what I'm struggling to understand is that these claims are decades in the making. Are you expecting people who are watching our conversation to honestly believe that the church wouldn't have known that these things are actually happening, considering how long, allegedly, they've actually been taking place?
In our findings that we've looked at, some of the people that are discussed or spoken about aren't even at the mission anymore. Some of them aren't even alive. So it would be difficult to say, but that's why we say, please come forward. let them mention who was involved. We are very open to that so that the right people can be approached, that the perpetrators can be brought to book, and so that everything can be sorted out.
All right. When you mentioned that there could be a semblance of truth to some of the claims that have been made, and I'm paraphrasing here, to what extent are you conceding possible wrongdoing at the mission? Is it a matter of conceding some of the abuses, the sexual violations? Is it a matter of conceding the money laundering that might have taken place? Which aspects of the wide-ranging list of allegations do you concede might have even a semblance of legitimacy?
Yes, the money laundering, I can confirm, never ever happened. And yes, we are microcosm. There are individuals involved. The mission was never complicit. If these different allegations involve different individuals, those individuals have to be brought to book. But the mission would have never ever been complicit with any of these allegations.
You know, what made this particular story interesting, for lack of a better term, Ruth, is that it really delved into a realm that South Africa has been struggling with for quite some time. The nature of some of the concerns that were raised by the alleged victims in this matter had to do with the doctrine and the practices of the mission itself. And sometimes people might argue that those rites of passages or those rituals weren't necessarily illegal, but certainly did raise eyebrows when to consider the ethical muster of those practices. Do you imagine a situation where the teachings of Kwasizabantu could leave people legitimately feeling hard done by the institution?
We base our whole living according to the Bible. We want to live and bring it back to the Bible and the scriptures. If there were any practices that were not correct, those would be stopped. For example, corporal punishment, yes, that did happen. But way back in 96, we said that must no longer happen. The virginity testing that they're discussing, yes, that did happen. We have a lot of Zulu people. It's a cultural practice. But as well in 96, we said, look, that is not something that we want to do, even though it was requested. So we base our belief on the Bible and scriptures, and that is for us the most important in everything that we do, to go back there and make sure that it's scriptural.
And so what responsibility then is the mission willing to take for what you now admit were, pretty clear violations of people's rights during that period, even though it was 1996?
We have always opened our arms and said, anybody that has felt hurt in that time, please come forward. All we can do is reconcile. They can come forward. We want it to be discussed. Whoever they had those difficulties with, whoever was involved, those people are open and welcome for them to come so that all those things can be sorted out and that we can go forward and serve the Lord together.
Well, Ruth, to be frank, that's not true. The mission hasn't always been open. In fact, we had a very difficult time trying to get someone like you to come onto the show to speak as openly as you are now. What happened to the claims that some of these allegations are nothing but a smear campaign?
Obviously, as I've mentioned before, when all these allegations came forward, they came as a shock to us. We didn't feel that it is correct to just go forward, make statements. As you said, these allegations date far back. And it was important for us not to just dismiss it and say that's not possible, it's not true.
Ruth, sorry to come in there. This is exactly my point. The statements that we did receive at the onset of these allegations were dismissive. In fact, the term that was used is that it's a smear campaign. Some of the reports saying that people in the church are suggesting that this is a disgruntled faction of the institution trying to bring the establishment down. Surely you have to concede that that is an outright dismissal of some of these claims that you are now conceding may have some truth to them.
I think the point that we want to make clear is that this isn't the way of life of the mission. We would never condone that. We are a microcosm of society, and we're not exempt to the evil that happens in the world. But that doesn't mean that the mission is complicit to it. It does not mean that these things the mission would just ignore. Those things, that's why we have opened up to say, please come forward. Please, let's discuss it. Let's get an independent panel to assess, to find out what is the truth in this matter. Ultimately, we want truth. We want the perpetrators to be brought to book. The motive behind everything, we don't know people's hearts. But that is beside the point. For us, the most important thing is that these allegations are looked into, that the truth comes out so that we can address it, and that the work that was started and the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that have received help through the mission, that we can continue doing that work and that we can be a place of healing.
Right.
The emblem of the mission is a cedar tree with a path running underneath it. And that's always been the vision of my dad, that people that come across any walk of life, that they can come, get the refreshment that they need, get that peace
right.
that they
Ruth,
need.
if I can come in here very quickly, apologies once again for interrupting you. I do understand you do have talking points that you want to get through, but we are out of time. If the truth, as you put it, reveals to us that some of the corruption, the maladministration, the human rights abuses are deeply entrenched in Kwasizabantu, almost systemic, do you think that is enough for the mission to be closed so that at least the victims can have some form of healing?
We are confident that that is not the case. We are very confident, and we know why the mission exists. We know why we are here. Each and every one of us are here to spread the gospel and to live according to the Bible. And we are confident that that is the case, that we have not been complicit to any of the evils. And that's why we want the truth to come out.
Right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much for making time for the AM report. Certainly appreciate your weighing in on this incredibly important discussion. Ruth Combrink is the spokesperson of Kwasizabantu Mission in KZN. I wonder what you make of that discussion. Make sure you let us know at Newzroom 405.